Hello and welcome to Show and Tell with Coach Chad Grier.
I like SmackDown.
Well, it's a SmackDown Show and Tell after the Friday night big win for the Land Sharks at Johnson Haygood Stadium. Of course, they played their sister school rival, Gray Collegiate, out of West Columbia. And boy, what a great game it was. The Land Sharks jumped out to a 35-14 third quarter lead. Then the Gray team scored 4 straight touchdowns, took the lead, and we came back and won it 49-42. Coach, congratulations. The Pinnacle Trophy stays here in Mount Pleasant.
Absolutely. We just couldn't be more proud of the boys, and great fan support. Just a great night for Oceanside football. Very fun. Very fun.
And, I know you like to talk about your feelings on the show, and so if I could just play psychologist for a minute, I wonder, how are you feeling when Gray Collegiate scored their 42nd point and took the lead?
How was I feeling? Do you ever listen to John Boy and Billy? You ever heard that show in the morning?
I have.
You ever heard Hoyt and Delbert? He says, "Not too good." that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I think you and all your fans probably had that sinking feeling that, man, all the momentum is with the other side after we were really dominant, especially in the running game. But then you turned it around. You got a couple turnovers, a touchdown on a kickoff return. Tell us,
I never felt like the game was away from us. I mean, I think we knew at halftime. We did a really good job in the first half. We gave up a couple home run plays defensively, but still 28-14 at half, and thought that Coach Jackson's game plan was working. Our kids were executing it really well, with the exception of just there was a couple home run plays, and that came down to tackling. And some of that, you got to give credit to where it's due. 17-4, tough to tackle. Now, just like our number 5 is tough to tackle, but we didn't do a great job tackling. It got worse in the second half, and again, some of that credit certainly has to go to those talented kids. I thought we did a good job keeping them behind the chains a little bit early. In the second half, we played a little bit softer, a little bit more cushion than we probably should have. But again, to that point, I thought their quarterback, Helms, did a great job throwing the ball in tight windows. He moved around the pocket. He played an exceptional game. All that being said, it really never felt like it was away from us. I think offensively, we felt like we weren't going to be stopped unless we stopped ourselves. We had the touchdown call back for a hold that we didn't convert on, so we left those points on the field. And we had the 2 picks off tip balls were just bad luck. I mean, it happens, unfortunately, but I think without those 2 things happen, we're moving to score those 2 drives. So I think in our minds, we felt like it was unfortunate we got in this situation, but we felt like offensively we were going to continue to score. We just need to get a stop, and our defense really came through when it mattered most.
You mentioned the quarterback for the War Eagles, Hunter Helms. How soon we forget.
I'd just soon be forgotten. I don't want to do with him.
Well, you mentioned on the show last week that you really wanted him to have a good game, but you wanted to win.
Yes, that worked out good.
It worked out great. The guy was 25 of 27 on the day.
Yeah. He and watching the film, I felt like Friday night was happening. I felt like we just were giving him the receivers too much cushion and too much respect over the top, trying to take away home run plays. But when you watch the film, we had guys, really pretty good coverage, and he's throwing some really accurate balls. And he moved out of the pocket really well, escaped pressure, which I thought didn't think he'd be able to do as well against our defensive line. Their offensive line was big, and they did a great job. Offensively, that's as good a high school football team as I've really seen in a while. I mean, I say that with all due respect. Other people we've played and will play, but that's a really talented offensive football team at Gray.
Well, speaking of offensive talent, let's talk about Keegan Williams. 5 touchdowns on the day, a 90-yard kickoff return. His all-purpose yards were something like 350 in that range.
Or 367.
I think he had 367.
Who's counting?
Yeah, Coach likes to be precise with these numbers. So in that case, I think he had 237 yards on the ground versus number 17 with 236 for the other side. So he was the leading rusher in the game. Really an impressive, unbelievable performance.
It just becomes, almost ho-hum. You expect him to do something spectacular every week. I mean, it's just become the normal for Keegan. And he got a lot more touches this week, probably more than ideally I draw up. But he's such a physical runner. His balance, his vision are so good. He doesn't take a lot of hits. He delivers some hits, but he protects his body really well. He changes direction so amazingly fast. Kind of the same feedback I got actually Sunday night. West Virginia coach called me with an eval of Keegan, and those are some of the same things they were talking about him. I think he's just a tremendous player. He certainly makes me a better coordinator or play caller because there's some things I call like, I probably should have done something else, and he, makes it work.
It's
so,
hard to go wrong when you call number 5.
Just put the ball in his hands and give him a little bit of room, let him do what he does best.
Well, and speaking of giving him a little bit of room, let's talk about the offensive line. Those guys who are opening up the holes. I saw Will Galls on one play, 15 yards downfield at the end of the play, still punishing the guy.
Yeah, he's a gorilla. I mean, I love the way he plays. He brings, to be a younger guy, first-year starters on the varsity, and he brings so much intensity and passion and work ethic and effort. I mean, just really does a great job for us. I think across the front, it's the best offensive line I've probably ever had the pleasure of coaching. Coach Robbins does a tremendous job with those guys, but Dylan Seabuck, we talked about some last week, and his leadership and what he's doing, but literally across the board, they're big. Jackson Lynch had a great pancake. They just, all of them. I mean, Will Armitage, I thought, broke his nose in pregame.
I heard that.
And he's getting stitched up like a boxer, and doesn't miss a beat. He just toughs it out and goes out and competes all night. And just our guys up front are doing a great job. But we said back in the spring, we really believe this team will go as far as our front lines take us on both sides. And when we play well up front, we're going to be tough to beat.
And you got Miles Castaigne playing both ways.
Yeah, and he's got the energy to do it. I mean, and arguably you could say he's our best player on both lines. I mean, he just does tremendous energy and effort, enthusiasm, leadership. He's tough. He moves incredibly well for a young man his size. Again, another one that's remade his body. He was 295 pounds. I think he says he got to 300 at one point when we first met him. And he was walking the halls not playing football. And got him in a weight room, and he was doing all the Fortnite dance moves. And we go, man, you got great feet, and he would come out in spring that year, and he'd go about 4 plays and be almost dominant. And we're like, wow. But in the 5th play, he was done. He was tapped out, just out of gas.
Yeah.
The guy got down to about 250 at one point. He's worked back up to about 265, just remade his body, has great stamina, and just a very athletic kid for a young man that size, and does a great job for us.
Oh, that's excellent. And you talked about the defense a little bit. Maybe a little bend but don't break in this game. Do you attribute the offensive performance of Gray to playing a little conservative on defense, or are they just that good?
No, they're that good. I mean, I don't know that we'll see anybody again if we make it all the way. I don't think we're going to see anybody that good on offense, and I think they're going to make a lot of noise in the upstate. A lot of the attention in high school football in the state is centered around the Midlands and the upstate, and the lower state. We just don't. You saw the Shrine Bowl team came out. There's 2 guys from the lower state. That just kind of the way our state is organized, I guess, and maybe historically. But I think Gray is. They're not thought of in the same breath for whatever reason as Saluda and Southside Christian and Abbeville. But I think Gray's got the talent to compete with those guys very favorably. We've got to worry about our own situation down here in the lower state. We've got a lot of quality teams down here to deal with. But I told the kids yesterday, the only thing that matters for us right now is going 1-0 this week. We got to beat St. John's. And
let's talk about St. John's. I mistakenly said on the broadcast Friday that we're going to play our first conference opponent, but they're not a conference opponent. They're in the conference with Baptist Hill, and they're co-leaders in their division with Baptist Hill, but both with a 1-2 record. How do you just assess this game going into Friday night?
Josh Harp, their coach, is one of the first guys that when I came here, I can't imagine. I didn't realize that we didn't have a lot of people that thought highly of Oceanside when we got here. People don't like the fact that we exist. Go figure. And he was one of the guys that just professionally reached out. Has been just a super great person first and foremost. I love what he's doing over at St. John's with those kids, and that's the program he's building. We've had 2 really competitive games with them so far. So on a personal level, I have a lot of respect for him. I have respect for his kids and what they're doing. I think they're down a little bit this year, playing a lot of young kids. But that's he'll have them ready to play. And again, we've had 2 very competitive games with those guys that they're going to give us fits, especially up front. They do some things scheme-wise a little unique, Not surprising, given I think they're very well coached. But
on offense or defense?
Both. Defensively, they do some things that they'll be in an odd front, and they'll take a linebacker and walk him down. All of a sudden, they're in an even front. So it's going to be a challenge for offensive linemen to be aware of their different line calls and notice when those changes make. And we can't really, and maybe I'm just not smart enough, but I've been watching film. I really can't figure out what triggers that. And maybe it's just Josh decided he wants to be in a odd front versus an even on certain plays. But so they do a good job of disguising when they're going to do it. So it's not predictable. But our guys, I think, are we've been practicing against both kind of fronts since spring, so I think they're prepared to deal with whatever comes our way.
And what kind of offense do they run? Are they going to throw it or run it or both?
A little bit of both. They typically the athletic quarterback that does a little bit of both. I think that the big thing for us is to not get too hung up on what they're doing. I think last week, to answer your previous question better, Coach Jackson had a very good game plan built, and it was a very precise, specific game plan for dealing with all the weapons Gray has. We didn't play a lot of just our base defense. We had to do some things that we couldn't let Ford be by himself in space. I think Gray did a good job finally just saying, hey, you know what, if you're going to try to take away 4, we'll just give it to 17 over and over, or we'll throw it to 2, or we'll throw it to 1, or we'll throw it to 7, and they did that. And we because of the scheme we played, we had to get out a little bit of our normal stuff. I think this week we're going to get back into just simplifying the game plan, being very focused on playing fast, playing physical, being better tacklers. We're going to do a lot of tackling today, in fact, in practice. So we'll be ready for Friday.
I know everybody's going to be looking forward to that.
I'm sure.
Speaking of things we forgot to mention, I should have asked you about King Deloney because he had a big touchdown for you.
Really happy for him. He's been snake bit. It seems like every time we got something schemed up for him and the offensive side of the ball for him, we miss a block or something crazy goes wrong, a penalty or whatever. So it was great to see in that situation. Don't want to take away from the fact that Keegan, rightfully so, gets a lot of attention for his all the things he does with the ball in his hands. But on that play, he had a great block to spring King to get him in the end zone. King was explosive, made a great cut, determined to get in the end zone. That was a great play for us, obviously, to game-winning points. But what King's done every week this year, he grades out really high as a running back for all the unsung things he does. He's been a great blocker, just almost to perfection every play he's been in. He knows exactly what to do. He gets where he's supposed to be. He's had some great punishing blocks. In fact, he got our lumber award we give to the big hit of the week, and he got it for a block he made in the game. So, continuing to grow as a defensive back and is going to be a huge part of our success and our ability to go deep in the playoffs as a safety. But really did a great job giving us work on both sides Friday night.
And special teams, Coach, it's not often that I'm really entertained by a kickoff unit, but I was very entertained and curious every time we put the foot to the ball what Spencer was going to do with it.
Well, look, I'm not the brightest light in the hall all the time, but we're not going to kick it to 17-4. So
I get that.
we had to come up with some different stuff. And again, Coach Jackson runs our kickoff team, and I thought he did a great job not being predictable with that. I thought Spencer executed really well. Spencer got our special teams player of the week for not just his placement of the balls. He kicked one out of the end zone when he needed to.
He did.
I
think he was a monster.
Yeah, he's about 8 yards deep. I mean, he crushed it. But he also recovered what wasn't supposed to be an onside kick. It just one of those that had a funny bounce, and he's hustling down and getting the ball for us. I mean, he just that was a huge play. So really proud of Spencer. He's going to be a great weapon for us for the next few years to come too.
And Chris Haynes again, Mr. Perfect. Well, with one exception, I think.
Well, that really wasn't his. It
wasn't his bad,
snap was off, and Walker did a good job just protecting the ball. Chris didn't get a chance to kick it, so he's still perfect on his kicks, and it just continues. He's kind of getting into a rhythm. I think you see him in practice and some of the work he's doing with Coach Benton. He's just killing it. So he's going to be another big weapon for us all year.
JV team suffered its first loss since the program began last year. Give us your thoughts on them.
Well, I mean, I'm very proud of the JV team. That's what I told them yesterday. I mean, it's not even. I want the kids to learn to compete at everything they do: schoolwork, homework, practice, games. If they're keeping score, they ought to want to win, and they ought to do everything they can to win. And I think they certainly did. I mean, it's football. It's not rocket science. We turned the ball over 4 times. It's hard to win when you turn it over 4 times. In their defense, they were off for an entire week. They have to travel up in a school bus to Columbia to play, and we get up there and there's lightning delay at halftime. We got to put them back on that bus, and air conditioning wasn't working great. So I mean, no excuses. But the fact is, we just everything was kind of set up against them, and I thought they showed a lot of mental toughness to be able to go compete the way they did. And I thought we had an early lead. Turnovers put us in a hole. Take nothing away from Gray. I mean, watching the film, that was a very good JV team, and that they're going to be continued. They've got a great program going, just like I think we do. I think they'll continue to win games at both levels, and be a great game for us, for years to come. But I ain't happy for them. I mean, they face a lot of the same struggles we face and challenges. People misperceptions and some bad information out there from people who don't understand our schools and how they're set up. But I think we get more done with less than about anybody out there, and they certainly feel our pain and live the same story. But our JV guys did a great job. They're going to continue. They're playing a very tough schedule. We've scheduled up for them big schools and tough competition, and that's just going to make them better and make our varsity, our whole program better as the years go on.
And when is the JV game? When does the JV team play again?
So we're off this week, and then they get back at it next week. So this week, we've challenged. I mean, we always have a JV dress list, typically based on the previous week. And this week we said we're going to make it after Wednesday's practice. They get 3 days to work with us, and we're going to try to dress out a lot of those guys, and hopefully have an opportunity to play some of those guys Friday night. I mean, I think they've earned the right to do that, and but that's where we are around here. You earn everything. We're not going to give anybody anything. Life's not fair, and life's certainly not going to give you anything. You got to go out and earn it. And I think our guys that culture is starting to permeate, and they understand that, and they're competing for a chance to dress, and hopefully a chance to get on the field Friday night.
Very good. Friday night we will be attempting a live stream. I doubt we'll have as good a signal to use from St. John as we did at the Citadel Stadium, but we'll do our best, and if the video doesn't work out, we'll have an audio broadcast of the game, so our fans who can't make it out there will be able to listen. Coach, any closing thoughts today?
Yeah, I thought about you last night. I'm sure you were watching Raw.
There's this show that I really like on Monday nights. It's called Monday Night Football.
Yeah, but
and last night was like the 50th anniversary game.
It was such a bad game, so you had to go back and forth. But anyway, what you missed.
I got Odell Beckham on my fantasy team. It was not a bad game.
Yeah,
the dude had an 80-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
SmackDown. Well, it was King. It was Raw. SmackDown's tonight. It was King of the Ring.
Is it a show about oysters or what?
Close enough. King of the Ring last night, and really important is a local. My man Kevin over at the local TV station wanted to know if we could get a Don Morocco reference in. And actually, King of the Ring was last night, and Chad Gable lost to Baron Corbin, and which makes sense because if you saw two guys, you would expect Corbin to win easily. But Gable's an Olympian. He gave him a battle. The first ever King of the Ring champion, do you know who that was?
You.
Don Morocco.
Oh,
so
okay.
Kevin,
that was on the tip of my tongue.
Kevin, we appreciate you watching, but Don Morocco, first King of the Ring champion, last night, new champion Baron Corbin.
Well, there you go. Wrestling update. And I do have to tell people, last week, I just threw out this reference to Mr. Wrestling number 2, who was, the local wrestling guy on Georgia Championship Wrestling when I was a kid. And then later that day, Coach sends me a text of a tweet from I didn't even know the Post and Courier had a wrestling sports editor, but they do, which I'm sure is perfectly appropriate. At any rate, that was on that very day, it was Johnny Walker, Mr. Wrestling number 2's real name, his 85th birthday.
How about that? It all comes full circle.
It does. Everything comes around, goes around. All right, Coach, congratulations on this big trophy and win, and hopefully we'll do it again this week. We'll see you all next week. Thank you.